Hi there, it's Issy here, and in today's video, we'll be creating this report. Let's get right into it. This dashboard provides information on hospital visits and accidents. Sometimes you find that your stakeholders or audience are just looking for key information. They don't want a full report with different information, and that's the reason why I created this. So this shows the hospital visits over different time periods. So we have 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, and 1 year. This is the main information for the different selected time periods, and then that same period in the previous year. We also have percentage change over the two different years, and this line chart just shows the different values per month, and then when you go to 1 month it shows it per day, and then 2 weeks per day as well, and 1 week per day. And if I move over to the accidents, the same thing is just showing accidents for the different time periods, the previous year, and the percentage change over the year. So let's go into Power BI and build this together. I'll import the data set. It's a CSV file, so I'll just click on get data and text and CSV, and then I'll get the cleaned A&E data and just open it. This data would be in the description of this video, so you can grab it from there. Because I know that this data is clean, I'm probably going to just load it into Power BI. But usually if you know that you need to make some changes to your data, it's best to check it out in Power Query and make all the necessary changes and clean it. Here's the data set. I'm just going to go to the table view. So this data set has the date, total visits, average wait time, accident, high severity cases, and minor injuries. And I know what I'm going to be focusing on today would be just the total visits and accidents. The data set is from the 1st of January 2023 up until the 25th of July 2025. Let's change the canvas size and background. So I'll just click on format here. And then for the settings, it's going to be under type and then custom. The height I will be using is 510 pixels, and then the width is 660, and I'm just going to make the alignment middle so that I can see clearly. For the canvas background, just clear what's there now and just D9 E1F2. Okay, that's the one. So I'm just going to drop the transparency to 0 so that it shows on here. The first thing we want to do is to set up the time frame. So we had 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, and 1 year. And in order to do that, we would need to create like a custom time frames table or just a disconnected table. Modeling and then new table. That's the table here. What this is going to do is that it's going to create a table with 3 columns. So the different columns have period, label, index. So 1 week, which represents the last 7 days, and then the index number 1, 2 weeks, last 14 days, and index number 2. And then we have the same thing going for the 1 month and 1 year. So this just makes it easy for us to switch between the different time periods. So I'm naming that time frames. I'm also going to provide every measure in the description, or every table that we create as well in the description of this video, so you can also check it out. So I'm just going to hit enter here, and then let's have a look at what the table looks like. So this is what it looks like: 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. So the next thing would be to create the date table as well. So let's create new table, click on new table, and then we have the date table here. So the date table has several columns: the year, the month number, the year month, and the relative day index. The relative day index basically shows how far each date is from January 1st. So if you have January 1st would be day 1, January 2nd would be day 2. I'm just going to click on commit so that you can see what it looks like. And then I'm going to sort the month by the month number, just so that when we're using it in the line chart, it's sorted in the right manner. So just click on sort by column and then sort this by month number. And then for the year month as well, I'm going to sort it by the year month number. So just do that. Okay, so this is what our date table looks like. The next thing I would be doing is to connect the date table with the data set. So just create a relationship, and then I'll go to the model view here. Just going to close this, and then I'll drag this to here. So we want a many to one relationship so that when we're filtering, it's filtering properly, and the cross filter direction would be single. So we have multiple entries of dates. So the date here isn't unique. The date in the data set isn't unique. There are multiple entries for some dates, and then the date table has one single entry for each date, and the cross filter direction is single. I have made a video on data modeling. If you want to view it, I would link it above. So I will save this now. Okay, so that is done. So let's go back to the report view. So in the report view now, I'm going to create the time frames, but I'm going to use a button slicer. So I'll just select that. Okay, and just reduce it. Let's elongate it as well. And then we have this. So I'm going to move the time frames period that we created initially. So I'm just going to move the period here. So you see it here that is showing us the 4 of them, or I will change the layout of the slicer. We want that to be, let's leave it as grid, and then change this to a maximum of 4 columns so that everything is showing properly. And then I'm going to turn off the title because we don't need that. And then I'm going to remove the padding as well. All of this space in between, I'm going to let's turn off the background so that we can see. Then I'll put the padding as 0, and that's done on that size and style. 0, 0, and 0. So we'll deal with the styling just a little bit later for all of them. Just looking here, it hasn't come through correctly. We have 1 month, 1 week, 1 year, 2 weeks instead of 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. So the reason why that has happened is because it hasn't been sorted properly. So I will go back to table view, and then for period, we'll sort the column by the index just so that it comes in the right way. So we have 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. Okay, the next thing we will do is begin to create our measures. So I'm going to create another table for that. So on the home tab here, I'll click on enter data. So I'll just name that visit measures or V measures. Depends on what you prefer. So load. So the first measure is the total visits for the selected period, and this measure actually powers all the cards and chats. They respond to each time frame. So the first thing we have to do is to check which option the user has picked or you have picked, if it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, and 1 year, and then convert that into a number of days, right? When that's done, we calculate the start date and use that to filter our date table. So the result is what we sum up as the total visits for the selected period. So I'm just going to click on commit. Okay. So I'm going to select the card visual here and just put that here. Let's take this up a bit, slightly. And then we would place the total visits for the selected period in here. So we have 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year there. So the next thing would be the line chart. So I'm just going to grab that. And let's just stretch it out a bit. And then I'm going to place the same measure that we created. That would be total visits in the y-axis, and then the dates would be, so for the date table, I didn't make this the date table, so I need to update that. So just right click here and mark as date table. It's important that you do so, and then select the column here, date, and save. Okay, So I will put the date on here. So just looking here, you see it changes from 1 week to 2 weeks to 1 month and then 1 year, right? We can leave it like this, depends on you really, but it's very hard to get any information from the way this chart is set up. Okay, so I wouldn't advise you to leave it this way. It depends on you and the audience that you are delivering this type of information to, but keeping it this way for me doesn't really communicate anything, because it's all like squashed up together, like the difference, because it's giving us every day in the year. So that's the reason why we have it this way. I'm going to clean this up first because I want to reuse it, right? So in the format panel, I'm going to, let's take out all of this. So if you click on this, you can just delete and that takes it out. And then for the title as well, I'm going to turn that off. So we want the grid lines, and then we want to turn off the background of this. Let's go to size and style, turn that off. This isn't the line color that I aim to use, so I will go to lines here, and then let's change the style of this line. So we can make the interpolation type smooth, just so it's flowy. And then I'm going to change the color as well. So the hex code I'm going to be using would be 33333. Yeah, 3. That's the one. And then I'm going to also increase the transparency to, let's say, 30, 26, 30. Depends on what you prefer. And then I will click on markers because I want the markers to show, and then I'll turn it on. Okay, so the way the dots are showing for the grid line actually showing isn't very visible, so I'm going to change that as well. So it was the vertical one we turned off, and then I'll just change the color to black. Yeah, this is what I was hoping to get. I'm going to change the way the dates are being shown, so I want to change the color as well to black, just so it's clearer. And then for the y-axis as well, I would change that to black right here under values. Okay, so let's see what happens when we change over. So it looks good. It's just this one that is the problem. Now to fix this, I'm going to create 4 different charts, right? The reason why is that for the year to actually show one singular month for the past year, we have to use the year month in this case. But if let's click on line chart, and then if I decide to bring in the year month, let's see if that changes anything. In fact, it makes the chart way longer. So it's showing you for every single day, right? It's showing you for every single day. If you wanted to just have 1 month, 1 week, 2 weeks, and 1 week, it will be fine. But when you have the 1 year and it begins to look this way, and it begins to look just like this, then you're not really communicating any information. So that's the reason why I'm following this other method. But then it really depends on you what you would prefer to go with. So what I'm going to do is I will copy this chart in 4 places. Okay, I'm just putting it anywhere for now. Copy it again. And then copy it again. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do with each one of them. So for this first one, it's fine. That's the one for, let's say I was using this one for 2 weeks, it's still fine. What I'll do is, so that this doesn't look very messy, I'm going to increase the canvas background size. Let's just increase the width slightly. I'll just make it 1000 and I'll change it back, just so that I can do this properly and clearly. Okay, so let me increase that a bit more, or just increase the height as well. Let's say 1000. Okay, just so that it's clear. And then I'll just move all of this together. So for the first 3 charts, everything is fine, right? But it's when we come to the last chart, that's the year chart, that everything becomes a bit more complicated. So what I would do for this one, I'm going to take this as the year chart. I would then make that, so for the y-axis, instead of it being date, I would take out the dates, and then I'll put year month. So that has changed every single one of them. And for the month as well, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm also going to put year month as well for the month. So let's select month. So I know it doesn't really make much sense right now, but it will make sense as we go forward. So I'm going to go to the selection here, and then I'm going to rename every one of them. So let's take this as our 1 week. So I will rename this to 1 week visits, and then we'll take the second one. So I'll just double click on it, weeks visit, and then we'll move on to the next one. So just select that, and then I'll change that to 1 month visits, just so that it's clear. And then the last one, which is the year, I'll change that to 1 year. So 1 Y visits. Then I'll create a measure that shows 1 week when we select 1 week, 2 weeks when we select 2 weeks, 1 month when we select 1 month, and 1 year when we select 1 year. So I'll just create the measure here. So what this measure basically does is that when we select the 1 week on the time frame there, it would show the chart with 1 week. And then when we select 2 weeks, it will show the chart with 2 weeks. But then we have to update this as a filter on this visual. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will go to the filters pane, because there's so much going on here. So I'm just going to do this. So if you click on customize, you see this bit that says show only one active pane. Once you click on it, it'll just show one active pane at a time, so you can have enough space to do what you have to do. Okay, so I'm going to click on filters. Right, for this visual, you click on the visual, and where it says add data fields, here I need to get this from the data actually. So I'm going to drag the measure that I just created, this measure that says show chart. So I'll drag it here. Okay, so when you drag it here, it says show items when the value is less. That gives you a different selection. So I'm going with is 1, or if it's 0, and I'll explain why if it's 0 once I'm done. So, and then apply filter. Okay, and then for the second visual, I'll do the same thing as well. So I'll drag show chart again, but this time around I'm going to say if it's 2, and then apply filter. And then for the third one, same thing I'm going to do on the visual here, if it's 3. So if it's 3, apply filter. So you can see that as I'm adding this show chart measure, it's just changing everything almost immediately. And then the last one would be show chart if it's 4. Okay, so apply filter. So that's done now, right? What I can do is I can set this back to the way it's supposed to be. So I'll go to the canvas, and then let's click on format here, and then change it back to the canvas setting back to 510 and 660. Okay, then that means we've lost everything that was previously there. I'm going to take it back. So for every single one of them, I'm just going to stack it up here. Okay, so just drag and drop, then drag and then drop. Just make sure that it's aligned, and then the last one I will drag and drop as well. And then I can go ahead to change it back to 510. That's the canvas setting, the canvas settings to 510 and 660. Okay, so now let's just test out what we did now. So 2 weeks, let's see. Okay, 1 month. This 1 month seems like there's something wrong here. And then 1 year. Okay, so for the 1 month, I used the year month, and that's making it show only June and July, right? So I'm going to change that back to date. So let's go back to build, and yeah, I'm going to have to select this particular one. So 1 month, let me do this 1 month, and then if I go back to build as well, I'm going to just remove that, and then I'm going to add just the regular date column. Okay, so that's perfect now. So 1 year, 1 month, 1 week. So just to make sure that they are all aligned in the same place, I'm going to check the format for each one of them just to search where it stays. So 30 and 323. So I'm going to change it to this, change it to 30 and 323. Oh no. So because I want to make sure that every of them is in the right place, so the different line charts for the different time frames are in the right place. So I'm going to just turn off that for a brief moment there, and then let's go back here. Just shut this down, and this as well, and then click on format just to make sure that it's all in the right place. So let me also check the selection as well. So let's start with 1 week. 1 week is showing as 31 and 324 in terms of like the aspect ratio. So I'm just going to change every one of them to 31 and 324. So let's do that. 31, 324. And then for the 1 month, we have 31 and 324, just to make sure it's aligned. And then 1 week, 31 and 324. Okay, that should be working now. So that's 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, and 1 year. So instead of that initial one that we had all the dates showing, what we have now is the date for the past 1 year. Okay. So to make sure that they are all like in the same place, I'm going to group this whole thing as visits or line charts for visits, so that if I move one, they all stay intact. So just click on the first one, and then click on shift, and then this, then right click, group, and name it. You can name it group 1, but just for clarity, just name it line or line chart visits. Okay, so now if I decide to move this, the entire thing moves, and I can check it here as well. You can see that it's moved as well, but let's just move it back to its original position. Okay, so we'll move on to the card now that has the total visits. So let's turn off the background as well, and then let's turn off the title. Right, so for the call out value, I'm just changing that to YoY semi-bold, and I want the values to display as like the full thing. So instead of it showing 1.2k or things like that, it just shows the full value. And then I'm also going to change this particular measure as well. So I want a comma to show for the values. So let's just do that and cancel. So that's 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. The old card doesn't really give you a lot of options, so I'm just going to change this to the new card. Yeah, let's do that, just because I wanted the value to be left aligned. So I'm going to change a couple of things. So I'm going to change the background. So let's turn it off here. Just right under cards, let's turn off the background. And then we can select the particular card we had in mind. So I'm going to also turn off the border as well. And then the title. So under color values, see the label title here, and turn that off. So I'll change the value as well to YoY semi-bold. And then should we increase it a bit? Maybe. And then I'm going to also change it so that it displays the amount fully. So you would need to select the particular card, not all, so that you can see the display unit. So change that to none. So yeah, when we change now, that just shows perfectly what we want. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to impute the last year value and the year over year change. So create another measure in the visits measure, and the measure would be to give us the last year like value for the visits that we had. So basically what it does is that it compares the previous year for every selected time period that you actually choose. So instead of showing a number like 3210, the card will now show you the previous year for that same time period that you select. So this is the measure for that. So first of all, it looks at what you've chosen, and then it defines the current year and last year's date range, and then it returns the value for that. So let's commit that. And I'll do the same thing for the year over year change as well. So I'll create another measure just under visits and then new measure. Okay, so what this one does is that once we already have the period for last year, what it then does is that it returns the percentage change for the different years. So the time period that you've selected for last year and the time period for this year, and then if the visits have increased, then we have the arrow going up, and then if the visits have reduced, we have the arrow going down, and if there's no change, we have a dash. So their comment here just showing what happens at every particular point in time. Okay, so I'm just going to commit, and now I will use the old card for this one. Oh no. So I'm going to use the old card, right? So select card, and then just going to put the value for the last year, for the previous year here. So let's drag that in here. So we have last year's visits, but because it's so large, I'm going to change that to 9. Let's see. We also don't want the title showing up, so the category label, turn that off. And then I'm also going to turn off the background here so that it's clear, and I also change this to YoY. So it depends on you if you want to change the color of the font, but I'm just going to leave it like this. So it shows you the year, and then it shows you, I'm going to increase the padding here just because it's a little too close. Oh, let me increase this. That's that one, and then I'll copy and paste it so that I can use it for the percentage change as well. So let's drag this into here, the year over year change. Okay, we have that. So let me just reduce this. So I'll just reduce this a little bit. Sometimes getting this to move. Okay, just do that. All right. Some hospitals will categorize their visits going up as a problem. That's in the public sector, for instance. But for the private sector, they want more visits. So for this data set, it's the private sector. So we would say once the visits increase, then it's definitely an increase going up for them. So I'm going to change this. Would use conditional formatting such that when the arrow is this arrow up, then we'll have it highlighted as green, and then when it's going down, we'll have it highlighted as red. Once you click on that, if we go to the call out value and you click on the conditional formatting here, so what we will do is, if it's an arrow going up, then we want it to be a particular shade of green. Okay, so just going to click on OK, and then the new rule will be if it contains the arrow going down. So if you want to access the emojis, what you would usually need to do is do the Windows and full stop, but for some reason I'm not really sure why mine isn't working. So I'm just going to paste the down arrow now, and then I'll change that to the red here. Okay, so click on OK. So when we change this changes, it changes, it changes. So you can see the previous year, and then you can also see the percentage change as well. I'm just going to make this just slightly bigger. Let's just increase it a bit, and then maybe bolden it. So it just shows the percentage change between the current 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, and 1 year. Okay, let's take this down a bit. I'm just using my arrow keys to just align this, the previous year and the change as well. So let's move on to updating the time frame options. So just click on this. The first thing I'll do is I will put up a background for it. So let's go to size and style and then turn on the background. Okay. So now I want this to be in a way that once this is selected, right, the others, this assumes the color of the canvas background, and then the others stay as black. So let's just change that background there to black. And then we'll go to the buttons just right at the bottom here. So this is the rest state, right? When nothing is clicked, this is what it looks like. But we want to change that. So let's change the field to become black actually. Okay, and then we'll also change the call out values here. Let's change that to white. Okay, so that when we hover across it, it just changes. So the next thing I'm going to do is when I select it now, it gives us a darker shade of black or a lighter shade of black, but I want that to take the same color as the canvas. So let me just get the canvas background here, or rather it would probably even be already saved. So let me just do this and then come all the way here. So just right underneath the series, you see the state. So I'm changing that to selected now. Okay, so when it is selected, I want the field to change to this. So when it's selected, it changes, changes, changes. That's what we have. And then when we hover, you can see this light gray bit, but it's not very clear. So let's change hover state. So we'll change that to, let's try this C. Not quite there yet, but so I'm just going to try something else. No, white is definitely not it. Let's try this. Depends on you really, whichever you choose, you can change it to, but I think I prefer this one the most actually. It gives this particular shade when we hover across it. So when we select 1 week, it gives us the same shade as this, as the canvas. I'm going to also curve the borders of this particular slicer. So let's go here. So it says visual border. If we just make that about 10 pixels, just make it rounded. Then when we select like that, like that. So if you notice here, you'd see with the visual border, there's like this really tiny dark space here. So depends on you. If you don't want that, what you just need to do is turn that off. So that goes completely. So yeah. Oh no, not the background, the visual border. So that goes completely, but you can leave it like this depending on you, but I want the border. All right, so I'm going to put that border, leaving that at 10. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is I will then put up the name, the title of the report here. So I'm going to click on text box, and I'm just going to write hospital visits. And this is, I use Sego UI bold or Sego bold. And then I used 28. So just going to reduce all of this and then also turn up the background here. Okay, just move that to the top. The next thing we'll do is to put up the 2 pages. So we have the visits and then we have accidents. So I'm going to go on to insert and then insert buttons, and then I will click on a blank button. Just move it somewhere here. So I'm going to put a text inside it. So just write on the format button option here. So button style. So I'm going to turn on the text, and then I'm going to put visits. So I want visits to also be this color. So let's turn on the feel of that. Let's change it to black. So we're just making some changes here. I'll turn up the border. Let's see what it will look like with rounded corners. Let's make that 10. I'm going to just copy and paste it here. Just create like an illusion that the buttons are inside each other. I will change this one to, we'll have to change the name here too. So just scroll all the way down, change that to accidents. Okay. So we want the two of them to be able to have some action when they are clicked on. But before I do that, I'm going to create the second page, which is the accidents page. I'm just duplicating this, and then I will rename this as visits, and then rename this. Let's rename that to accidents. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing, but I'll just take it from the top here. So hospitals, I'll just change that to accidents. Okay, and now that we have two pages, I can put an action on the two of them. So let's go back to visits, and then on the accident here, just the action here, once you turn it on, you'd see the different options that we have, but this time around we're using page navigation. So when we select accidents, it should take us to the accidents page. Okay, so I'm just going to control click, and then it takes us here. So I'll do the same thing for visits, turn that on, and then we go to page navigation, and then we go to visits. So that's done. But then when it's selected, we want it to have some actions, right? Let's go to button style here, and then change this to on press. So when we press that, we want the text to change to black, and then we want the field to change to the color of the page. So I'm just going to copy that here. Then the last thing would be hovering on hover. Maybe we just want the text to change to white. So that's working now. So I'm just going to copy this as well. So click here, and then just do this. I'm going to leave that as is, but you can always style it to your preference. Let's go to the accidents now. So we want to change everything because it's not the same information that we have, but this time around we're just copying and pasting. So I'll go ahead to create the accident measures. I don't want to place them here. You can if you want, really, but I just want it to be a little bit more organized. So enter data. So I'll name that a measures, or you can just name it accident measures as well. So once that is created, it's the same thing we're using. We're just changing the values for each one of them. So I'm going to create last year accidents, total accident selected period, and year over year change. So let's start with this one. Okay, and then I'll go to a measures and click on new measure, and then I'll do this. So I want to select the total visits because that's not what I'll be using. So once you just copy that, in the table you have accidents, so just change it to accidents, and then click on enter. Oh yeah, I need to change the name as well, so accidents. Then the next thing would be the total accidents for the selected period. So I'll just copy this, go back to accident measures, and then click on new measure. So click on new measure here on the accidents. And then I will also change that as well to accidents. So the only thing that is changing really is what it is calculating now, the sum of the accidents for the selected period in time. So I'll change the name as well to total accidents. And then I'll click on commit. Last thing is the year over year change. So go back here, the new measure again. I'm going to update every form of total visits here to accidents. I'm going to also update the comments here when I put the DAX measure in a file. So that's all updated, and then I'll click on commit. Oh yeah, I have to change the name to accidents. And then just hit commit. Okay, so now all of this is just going to be updated. So I'm just going to drag and drop. So for total accidents, let's just drop that here, and then I'll get rid of total visits. And then for the previous year, I will change that to, let me change that here. So last year accident. And then for this, I'm also going to change that as well. So that is all updated. There seems to be some padding here. So I'm going to take out the padding as well for this. Just take that out completely. Okay. So that has also affected where the positioning of the previous year and the year over year change. Okay, so we'll just leave it like this. But because hospitals don't necessarily like recording accidents, I'm going to change this now. So when there's an increase in accidents, it's going to be red instead of green, because most hospitals do not like to have accidents. But yes, let us change that. But it really depends on the sector you're working with. But I'm definitely sure for public and private sectors, in terms of hospital services, it's definitely not a good thing to have so many accidents. So let's change that. Just going to close this, and then I'll go to call out value. So this conditional formatting, we're just switching it now. So this is going to be red, and then this is going to be green, and then we'll click on OK. So that is changing, and if you look at it here, the value is definitely way different. So I'm also going to change this. So for the total accidents here, I'm going to add a comma, and then when I go to the call out values, I want it to show the full thing. So let's go to 1 year. So that shows us the full thing, and the same thing applies. So just to compare, you have 236 accidents in 1 week, and then for the hospital visit in 1 week, you have 1,246. So we also have to update the line chart as well. So I'm just going to select this, and because there are multiple here, so this also needs to be renamed. But let's start with this. So I'll just change that to accidents, and then I'll move this up because that's the only way we'll be able to access it. And then change that to accidents, and then I'll move this one up as well. Let's change that. So I'll just do it for the rest of them. So the last thing will be to change this, the y-axis for the accident line chart. Let's change that to total accidents. So what I'm going to do is that, because this is showing as blue, we don't want that. We don't want to have to change every single chart. The first thing was to actually go into view and then just customize your theme to reflect what you want. So the color 1 is what you would always have. So when you go into view then you right click here, you see customize theme. So just change that. I'm just going to change it to, it's 33333. Okay, just apply, and we shouldn't have that problem anymore. So most of the time it's best to do it at the beginning, right? But yeah, so I'm just changing that now to this, and then this as well, and then lastly for the accidents, and lastly for the 1 year. Okay, so it's now reflecting the way we want it to. So yeah, everything is now okay. So I don't think I added this now. 1 month, let me have a look. So this is total accidents here, so that's showing, and then 1 year we have this showing as well. The next thing I'm going to do is this accident here, the visit and accidents. I made some changes in the visits page, so I'm going to just copy and paste it. Copy, and then I'm going to delete this one and then paste. I'm going to have to turn on the action here. So this one is supposed to be page navigation and then back to visits. Okay. So let's see if that's working. Okay. So that's all done. We have the hospitals, the card, the hospital visits and information on there. But what I would do here is just adjust this to be much more aligned with the line chart here and with the hospitals as well. So yeah, so just align that. Okay, the accident has a border for some reason. So I'm just going to turn off the border on this card here because we don't want that. Okay, so just align this one as well. And then align the accidents. So it's all done now. You can decide to go with the first approach where you use just one line chart and then it changes, but the problem with that is that you get the 1 year and so many points showing, or you have to scroll through. So this is just a report showing high level information about hospital visits and accidents in a hospital. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, don't forget to share with someone who would also find it helpful as well. And don't forget to hit the like button, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.